Hello, you're listening to WRKE 100.3 LPFM, streaming live online at WRKE.org. On the TuneIn app, just search for WRKE. You love music, and so do we. That's why at WRKE, we're all about introducing you to alternative choices that the other stations won't or can't play. I encourage you to follow my social media profiles for empowerment, not division. And at Instagram and Facebook, that's on Anakin Heidrich, ANAKYN, HEIDRICH. Again, that's ANAKYN, HEIDRICH. And on YouTube and Instagram, that's on the coolest pet in town, and you can see all my videos there on my YouTube channel, the coolest pet in town. I encourage you to send any of your stories that you feel might be powerful and inspirational for others to hear through my social media pages. Like, go on there and comment your story and let me know if that's what you want to do. And, I guarantee you it will be told sooner or later. Know that if you tell me that you want me to share it, I most likely will. And once it's out there, it's out there. So just understand that there's a risk. And if you want to be a co-host, reach out to me and I will give you the necessary information to fill out so that you can co-host with me for an hour. Anyways, I just know that I don't do this just because, it's fun or because I feel like it. I do this because I felt inspired myself by, you guessed it, that Les Brown Live Your Dreams book. I felt, dang, I could really carry a legacy kind of like the others did, and while making my own, little flavor in this vein of speaking, just like motivational speaking alone, and take new routes that no one else has ever taken. And this is the perfect opportunity for this, so I am forever grateful to Roanoke College for, giving us students opportunities to perform shows like this and have weekly opportunities like this. So I really, really appreciate WRKE and the people in charge for allowing us to do such things such as these. And, again, I don't do this because it's fun, but because I feel like humanity needs to hear these words now more than ever. When has there ever been a time in the world when we didn't need words in times of encouragement? And that's kind of the idea of this episode. We were built for times like these, and we need to rise against all the negativity, because we're born in a negative world, and it's becoming more negative than ever. Part of that, I think, is because we don't get time to develop ourselves. We are in a world where we're told to be quiet and work and, keep our opinions to ourselves and not speak up. We spend so much money in our school systems teaching and forcing students, facts down their throats, but we don't even spend maybe 1% of our profits to the school system towards teaching the students about themselves. And this is what kind of leads to feelings of selfishness in our society. And this is what, leads people that deal with low self-esteem and anxiety and depression. They weren't taught to, speak for themselves. But anyways, I think this is the perfect time. We weren't put in this, I don't feel like we were put in this generation or in this century for nothing. I don't believe in coincidence in these cases. We were built for times such as these and need to rise against, adversity and corruption and evil and the negativity and just the negative mindset the world has developed now more than ever. And, it may be a crisis, and there's always been a crisis, but crisis may mean danger in the Chinese language, but guess what? In the same language, it also means opportunity. And, so here's kind of what I want to get at here. I have some exciting ideas and thoughts to share with y'all, and some that you wouldn't expect, but boy, will y'all be in for an intellectual and inspiring hour this week. If you like these ideas, I tell you right now to use them. If not, just disregard and let them be. Can we say, I can do that? I knew we could, my friends. If you can, do it. If you can't, don't. So there y'all go. Let's get going on the bandwagon. Stay hard physically and stay hungry, my friends. We have a beautiful hour together, and I don't dare to waste any of it. But, first, I thought I would like to introduce you to a couple beautiful songs, some of which are honestly my favorites, because we need them now more than ever. And so you're going to want to brace yourself for this, for a little bit of a roller coaster here. And this isn't to change my life solely, but it's also to change other people's lives. Prepare yourselves. So, there you have it for that one. It's Bob Singer's Like a Rock. It's probably my second favorite song of all time, and it always felt like the man was singing to me. I'd always hoped one day to, meet him and thank him for making such beautiful music that reflects just the constant struggle and endurance against life itself, realizing, life is a gift. Take advantage of it. Life is a puzzle. Solve it. Life is a mystery. Solve it. Life is a journey. Take it. Life is a challenge. Dare it. It's a song that I'm proud to share. And if you're listening, there's several lyrics to it that are definitely relatable, especially to someone like a little silly old me. I love the song more and more every time I listen to it, especially because those lyrics, 20 years now. 20 years, where'd they go? I sit and I wonder sometimes where they've gone. I'm 20 as I speak in the studio right now. It's just something about it feels so real. Sends goosebumps and shivers down my spine. It's a testament to how much we've all survived. And and I've survived my own fair share. Everybody's troubles are the same. Nobody's suffering's discounted. And, I've survived and put behind in the past, terrible stomach ulcers, like a stomach lining almost open up and, almost near sepsis, being in that type of pain. And I had a throat from that gastritis and that ulcer and the peptic ulcer disease. There was a throat that was on fire. It felt like it was with no end. And terrible onset depression, coming right upon graduating from high school, and it lingered on into 3 semesters into college until it finally, started mitigating and slowing down, and I was able to finally start finding coping skills and coping mechanisms that were healthy and allowed me to manage this. And it came to a point where even I said to myself, I don't like to believe that I was depressed. I'd like to believe that maybe I was just struggling at the time and didn't have the proper tools to handle the situation. And I've noticed that to kind of be the commonalities. Most people just were never given the proper tools growing up or whatever to handle life's huge problems, especially the problems you never see coming, especially the problems that not even an Einstein could foresee with all the knowledge in the world. And that's kind of the beauty of life, is just you never know what it's going to come. It's like Forrest Gump, life is like a box of chocolates. You just never know what you're going to get. And I don't like to believe that it's true for me. I feel like saying that feels like a self-imposed limitation. I don't like to believe that it's true. Sometimes I have to come to groups and face that reality, but as of right now, no, I do not feel as if this is true for me. I just sit there and say, we're going to keep going through this, and we're not even going to acknowledge it. The depression does not exist for us. It was like many of the businesses back in the Great Depression themselves, a different kind of depression, but a depression nonetheless. They were like, the depression does not exist for us. We are forbidden to speak of it. Studies show that not complaining about your problems increases your chances of happiness by 100%. It's crazy, but it's true. And there were other bits that I've survived, abuse like anyone else, and certain aspects of life. It wasn't easy come, easy go, especially when I was younger in school, and I literally had teachers asking me, was I really that stupid? And this and that, and like, it's like, let's put it this way, when it came to being liked or being popular in school, I definitely wasn't the first in line for those chances, you know what I mean? I was a little bit of a loner at that time, and that's what actually makes me reflect on this song a little bit more is in the music video for Like a Rock by Bob Seger. He too was almost like a loner in the music video, and right as the music ends, when that final guitar riff that gives me chills as he's riding off on the road at the end, it's like he's setting off to go back to the cruel, cruel world. And that almost sounds like, feels like me sometimes, getting ready to go out into the world every day, being strong, going out in the world and facing what I face. And the same applies to everybody. We're all getting brave, and we're all getting up and going out there in this world. It can be cruel and nasty, and where people sadly are, ugly to one another. And like, it's also survived things like kindergarten, where I've got in trouble every day. Again, nobody liked me. Elementary school, where, nobody except for my best friend Isaac at the time. We still talk, but unfortunately we have not been able to see each other in nearly a decade. But, he was like the one true friend about it through it all. We both literally lived house to house, and golly, I lost track of how many sleepovers we had. I just remember right before I left, he moved to an apartment not too far from there, and then I moved to Virginia, and I moved going all the way across the country until about here in good old Roanoke, Virginia, since April of 2019. So you heard me right when I've said it's 7 years, nearly. 7 years I've been here, and nearly 2 that I've been here at Roanoke College, and I've been proud to have had the Roanoke to be, just proud to have the honor to be here at Roanoke. And, middle school, where, only Ethan was there, and this is the 6th grade only, and I had best friends Ethan and Noah. We still talk. High school, where Kevin and I are stuck together, and we still stick together through thick and thin. We still talk to each other. We still see each other. We're like one of those friendships where you can go days, months, maybe years, where we don't see each other, and we just pick up right where we left off. I went through suicidal thoughts and your suicide attempt. I've had to spend 2 weeks getting actual care to resolve these problems myself. I have had at least 3-4 ER visits related to these ulcers and the abdominal pains. I've struggled with low self-esteem. I've failed exams too. Believe it or not, I wasn't born with God-given talent, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who's gone through it. This just to be encouraging. I've been through 7 amazing plays and experiences, one of which Kevin directed one time for one of the community churches, the Unitarian Universalist Church on Grandin Road. Of course, like I said before, I've went through the worst kidney and abdominal pains. When I first came to Virginia, it wasn't easy accepting the new change so much. I used to say I hate Virginia, and Virginia is awful, and I was so homesick from Colorado and the way things used to be. But I'm glad things are the way they are now, where I've been able to accept it, because honestly, I love being down here so much, and I have so much and have everything I need, and it's I have no reason to complain. And I have so much given to me, and so many people here that care for me too. I've gone through relentless bullying for the autism. Like I've said before, it wasn't always easy. I've lived through a tornado outbreak in Colorado once, and body dysmorphia, and we've just living through 5 U.S. presidential elections. A lot of people can say that for sure. But anyways, like I said, this song, it pushed me through the hardest times in my life. I recommend it to anyone who needs a song on perseverance. And I also recommend this other song coming up called another Bob Seger song. It's called Against the Wind. And here we go. So, there you have it. It's it's a beautiful song on the, just the human spirit, and like the others, it's like, he's singing about life himself, and it's probably my number one favorite song of all time, Against the Wind by Bob Seger. But, there's just specific lyrics that, spoke with me, like, wish I didn't know now what I didn't know then, and the years rolled slowly past, surrounded by strangers I thought were my friends. I found myself further and further from my home, and I guess I lost my way, and there were oh so many roads. And I broke rules in my youth. I was constantly on the move in school, and I still am, but, in a good way. For all the growth and development that I went through, and, growth and development's a never-ending process. It's lifelong. Years rolled by, and I kept constantly trying to find comfort against my adversity. He in this song, he kind of uses wind as a symbolism for basically adversity and opposition. So constantly running against adversity and opposition, and just simply endurance. Listening to both these songs was like he was speaking to me. I never related to a song more than when I listened to these two. Both songs are almost like making me emotional just because of how it felt like he was singing about my life, like how he was singing about all of our lives, because emotional struggles are almost universal. Suffering is universal. All of our struggles and our problems in this world are similar. And he's sung with he sings all of it with great enthusiasm. He's also not only this, he's also sung so many other great songs that radios just refuse to recognize. And I feel like that's the goal of some other radio stations I've heard across the country, is, they limit your choices so that you don't see artist's true potential. I'm grateful to have heard his other beautiful work, and one day maybe, who knows, I can share it with y'all or recommend a few songs to y'all. Because, you can't just capture an artist's scope just by listening to one or two of his songs. Just like a director, you don't watch just one or two of a famous director's films and say everything about this director, or who have embraced the scope that this director or this artist has. Because that's just the beauty of art, is there's just so much to talk about in it. And art is just kind of an endless discovery to keep discovering more, and just to find answers to life and why humanity is here and why humanity is the way it is. But to the song, I kept thinking that I was finding friends, that moved on, left me in the dust, and sadly, weren't even real friends except for the few friends and mentors that picked me up, like Stephanie, who had worked with me at Scratch Biscuit for so long. We still talk every day, and I am so grateful to have had a friend like her who got me through all the rough bumps in my life. She was always there to talk, and she was always there to text, and she always said, if you get down, my friend, you call me. There's almost not a day that goes by that we aren't, texting each other and whatnot. And I just want to say, if you're listening to this, I really, really appreciate all the encouragement that you've done to get me here, my friend, because honestly, if it wasn't without you or any of the other mentors in my life, I don't think I'd be sitting here right here in this studio breathing. So, a few other mentors were my best friend for life, Kevin Perry. He's like the bedrock of my friendship, of my social life. He's done so much for me. We've done so much with each other, so many great memories, and I'm glad to know we have that kind of friendship that can pick up even when we haven't seen each other in however X amount of time. I love it. Of course, my very own mother, the bedrock of my life. If you're listening to this, Mom, I love you. Joe Boucher here at the college, to have him kind of teach me almost everything about the film industry and almost like the current trends that are going on, and given his experience from the real world and bringing it into the classroom, it gets me really excited and pumped up to be in his classes. He's honestly one of my favorite professors, to be honest with you. So if you're listening to this, Joe, I really appreciate having the opportunity to have met you and to work with you. My boss, Sheila, she felt like another parental figure in my life that I needed when, at times it seemed like nobody else was there, when I was too blind to see that everybody was there. But she taught me kind of everything I knew about managing and, running Scratch Biscuit gave me lifelong skills. She's taught me so much, not just about, biscuits and cooking and this and that, but she's taught me just so much about life in general. There were times where we'd trade books together, we'd have that boss employee relationship, but it's always seemed like someone who was trying to give me a second chance, per se. So I really, really appreciate her being there for me, of course. And then I have Clarence, who also works at Scratch Biscuit on the weekends. I've known him for quite a while too. He is someone I could always vent to, judgment free, and had always been there for me. And like I said, so to Stephanie and Kevin and my own mother and Joe and Sheila and Clarence, just thank you. I can't say it enough. My home was in Colorado until I found a home here. So you can say I have several homes in Colorado and here in Virginia, and I have home in Oceanside, California, where I also live, Tucson, Arizona, where I've also lived, or Portsmouth, New Hampshire, where I've also lived. I've met my mark. And I don't know. I'm still running against the wind. Y'all are. We all are. We're all constantly struggling against adversity, struggle, sickness, pain, and evil. We're all just striving to go for something like a dream career, family, kids, or a business. I love it. I want to have it any other way. Where's life without struggle? Like Sean Huber said, are things happening to you, or for you? I'm just, it's like sharing my thoughts like a diary. If I had ever met Bob Seger, man in the flesh himself, I would thank him for his music, as I needed a lot of his music to push me through those worst and lowest times when it seemed like, I thought I would die or be at my knees. And kind of like how we've all been there ourselves, and we've all had our music that pushed us through. We, to each their own. This is just the music that got me through those times in particular. I still believe in my dreams. 20 years now, where'd they go? 20 years, I don't know. Again, like I said, it hits harder as I am 20 myself. And these are the types of songs, in this type of vein that just talks about the human experience, that will only hit harder later. And hopefully you have too. But I've also still believed that my dreams are possible in spite of everything that has tried to throw me off the track so far. And some of the lyrics, my steps were quick and light, and I held firmly to what I felt was right like a rock. I never compromised what I believed in for my dreams and goals in spite of the relentless pressure to conform my ideas and thoughts, because I know my why. You have your why. If you don't have a why, then what do you really have? Without a why, your dream is going to fall apart, and you're not going to be able to put the work in. If you don't have a solid why as to why you do what you do, to keep going and coming back again and again and doing what is hard, then what do you really have? He's had other lyrics, if I was 18, didn't have a care, working for peanuts, not a dime to spare, but I was lean and solid everywhere. I started Scratch at 17, worked through 18, and it had been quite an interesting journey, and I loved it. And like I said before to Sheila, I wouldn't have it any other way. I was grateful to still have a mentor like her. We still talk to this day, and honestly, actually 2 days ago marked the 3-year anniversary she had hired me, and I didn't know that it was a job that would one day really change my life. And I was through 18, I was constantly working off to pay my college tuition, the medical bills, and the medications I needed to help my tummy feel better. I had nothing to spare nearly 90% of that time when I was 18, and still don't now. I still always try to remain solid in my efforts at work and college, in spite of the heavy depression that can linger every now and sometimes I fall off the wagon. I will be the first to admit it. I'm not ashamed to admit to my mistakes, like anyone else shouldn't be ashamed to admit to their mistakes. I've done things that I'm never proud of, but I accept my past and allow it to push me forward and motivate me. But anyways, anyone can say what they will about, what we all have to share. But, I'm willing to share my dungeon and the darker side of my life because no one else will. Those darker sides in that dungeon, that mental lab, as David Goggins once said, is where the true growth takes place. That's what makes us who we are. Strangely enough, I want to have it any other way. I wouldn't redo anything in my life. So, God, thanks for an amazing 20 years. I'm glad I've not only gone through tough times like those I mentioned, but have grown through most of them as well. I've taken a lot of advice from many friends and mentors in my life, as well as a lot of cynicism, from others, like most do. I've just had to learn who to hire and who to fire. My mom always said, we live in a world where you are your own brand, your own business, your own corporation, your own sole proprietorship. You are the CEO of your life. You must hire and fire people as necessary. It doesn't take a business degree, just like how it doesn't take a degree to realize you don't spend all your earnings in one place. It doesn't take a business degree to realize this, that you need to pick and choose the people that are right in your life. Realize who is necessary, who encourages you. Keep who encourages you. Keep who tells you what you need to hear, who aren't your yes man. Who gives you the push you need in hard times, gives you the crying shoulders we all need, whether we like to admit it or not. And realize who isn't necessary. The yes men, those who you also want to discard them, yes men, those who constantly gaslight you and don't necessarily constructively criticize you, always try to tell you the path that your life is going to be and try to tell you that it's going to be this way and not the way that you are working for it to be. Try to force you to be exactly like them, and because you have something that they don't have and they want to take that from you. They try to force you to be exactly like them because you can't, but you can't exactly be like everyone else. Everyone else is taken. And you need to understand that everything I tell you isn't always going to apply to your life, because we all live differently. What I say and what any book will say on life is, this book alone won't solve you. I won't be able to solve all your problems or make you invincible, because there are lessons that only time can tutor you on, my friend, and motivation is only a word. It means nothing without discipline. Jocko Willink says discipline eats motivation for breakfast. The words that I say here are to prepare you for those hard times when you need that kick in the keister to get going. My mom has always been a force to be reckoned with and still is. What she went through all her life always told me I could go through it all and still come out on the other side. If you're listening to this, Mom, I love you. I love you very much while you're working 60 miles away and coming home each time for us, helping us out. In, just the adversity she struggled in, the adversity when she went through all of her life. Someone once told her all she'll ever be is a wife, mother, and a cook. Like any of those things were something to be ashamed of. Those aren't titles we shouldn't be ashamed, we should be ashamed of. We shouldn't. We have tried to slander those roles in our past history, but it's also honorable too. And, some say being a parent is the equivalent stress and work of 2.5 jobs. Full-time jobs. I'm not kidding you when I hear this. 2.5 full-time jobs. But I can also see, at the end, to my mother, it was always worth it, and she had always chosen us and had always put us first. And it would help build me one day, to be the mentor that I can be for other people. Not only do people be there for you, but you also need to be there for them. Not only did she fulfill those roles of being a good mother and a good mentor and whatnot, but she also became more than the mental prison her school counselor attempted to trap her in during high school. Those words her senior high school counselor said in 1992, where you came from homelessness and adoption and was now married. Congrats. You don't need to be a nurse, nor would you ever be. My mom has been a nurse for over a decade now and was a teacher for several years. To those who had good parents like I've had, you better hold them tight. My mother has been my nurse, taxi driver, chef, doctor, mentor, conversationalist. She's been uncompromising in her morals, but most importantly, a mother. You've had parents just like this that you've had the opportunity to have. Hold them tight. She recently shared a story with me about her life. Someone on her side of the family that I'd love to share with you about her brother, Richard. her late brother. The story is always banded to her, and I felt as though it was necessary to share with you all, just to show how capable anyone can really be if they just say that they have the good stuff within them. So, like my brother Richard Mahan was many things. He was a father, a son, a brother, a husband, motivational speaker, a mechanic, and an alcoholic. The legacy he left our family was one of strength. He never gave up when he struggled. Richard battled alcoholism for over 37 years. He messed up, he crossed the law, cheated on his wife, entered detox programs, and repeated the cycle many, many times. My mom's first memory of him was at her 5th birthday party. He had a bottle of tequila and was meant to eat the worm at the bottom. Her next memory was his car accident where he rolled in a Jeep and left the scene to walk to our home to hide. He lost his arm to cancer. Cancer is a disease, no one blames you for getting cancer. Some do when you smoke and get lung cancer, but mostly no one blames the person. And after all this, he dealt with the trauma by going to bars every weekend. He would walk and challenge any man to fight him one-armed. He always wanted to prove he was alive while simultaneously drinking himself to death. One man actually broke his only working arm. He didn't challenge anyone again after that. Richard divorced his wife of 23 years as he battled that alcoholism. And, again, like I said, alcoholism is a disease. Everyone wants to blame the alcoholic. But something I learned is the difference between the alcoholic and the person who never tried alcohol is that one never took a sip to become undependent on it, as my mother had said. He gave rehab one final chance around that time. He finally got sober. He and his wife moved in. They all moved in together the day after the divorce and was never separated again. Richard gained his sobriety and had a decade working with the Alcoholics Anonymous program diligently. He helped others as a mentor. He rode his motorcycle across the country, giving motivational speeches about his journey. The motorcycle had to be modified to drive with only his left arm. Richard was taken by cancer at the age of 55, and he managed to overcome every obstacle he faced at the time. He taught those around him that each time he fell and each time he was wounded, his determination to succeed only grew. Richard had both alcoholism and cancer. His cancer was a rare childhood disease of bone marrow. He was in his 30s. He had to go to a children's hospital for treatment because the specialist for bone marrow treatment in that time only had worked for children. Sometimes you just have to do what you have to do. He's now one of the prime examples of my life where hearing this story has only made me grow more akin to my family and the resilience my, Heidrich family name has carried through the years. Whether we're the villain or hero of everyone's stories, including their very own. We're all heroes and villains at times. Sometimes it takes lessons only time can teach to help realize we were the villain or we're the problem. I always try to work on myself because I know I am the problem too sometimes. But notice how I didn't say fix myself, but I said work on myself. Because you can't fix people, and you definitely can't fix yourself. Especially not overnight. But you have the people to change you and help you work on yourself as long as you are willing and want to see the change. It's a never-ending process. You are always improving yourself. You can always better your best in spite of whatever past you face. You can't spend every day in your life blaming this professor, that teacher, your boss, that stranger, your parents, the one friend who wasn't a friend. After a certain point, you must face reality and realize that you make the own choices that you're responsible for. I have come to realize this myself. Your pain is either your path to betterment or your path to the grave. You choose that. That is up to you, my friend. Sometimes you need to pull your head out of your own behind and realize how many people do truly love you. It took near 2 suicidal ideation moments for me to realize how truly large my support system was between my mother, Sheila, Clarence, Kevin, Stephanie, and several acquaintances are even to this day. I still talk to every single one of them nearly daily, and they do the same for me. My first day back in class in January this semester after being out for so long, had classmates I hardly remember calling my name and asking how I was. Please, don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. You never know how big or loving your circle can be. Those who spoke to you in said moments will tell you exactly who to keep. And, like you said, you're the CEO of your life. You hire and fire people respectively. You have to find the people you can count on in rough times in your life to be there when you need them, and you be there when they need you. And I have a great poem to share with you all. Douglas Malloch was a famous poet and writer for the associate editor of the American Lumberman, a trade newspaper in Chicago. Though his poems were hard to pin the date of publication around, I highly encourage people to hear them. As a matter of fact, I will tell one right here called It's Fine Today. It's one of those early 1900s beautiful poems. Sure, this world is full of trouble. I ain't said it ain't. Lord, I've had enough and double reason for complaint. Rain and storm have come to fret me. Skies are often gray. Thorns and brambles have beset me on the road. But say, ain't it fine today? What's the use of always weeping, making trouble last? What's the use of always keeping, thinking of the past? Each must have his tribulation, water with his wine. Life ain't no superb celebration. Trouble, I've had mine. But today is fine. It's not today I'm living, not a month ago. Having, losing, taking, given, as time wills it so. Yesterday a cloud of sorrow fell across the way. It may rain again tomorrow. It may rain. But say, ain't it fine today? This poem has changed quite a perspective to me here and taught me how little worrying has done for anyone in their life. How worrying wastes percentage of one's potential. I have my own journey full of poems and journal full of poems and quotes to help raise my spirits when I need to, and this one definitely has earned that spot in there. Quotes and poems alone won't change your life, but I believe that they, like any form of art, will put you in a headspace that's appropriate to impose the discipline, motivation, action needed to change your life for the better. I have failed quite a bit in my life. Most of the hard times revolved around my failure and feeling as if I was a failure. It was self-imposed limitation and honestly chosen suffering, looking back, hindsight 2020. Sometimes I feel like a failure every now and then, and I have to say to myself, hold on now, because we know that isn't true. Failure is one of the greatest teachers of all time, just like time itself. Failure teaches lessons only failure is capable of teaching. Effort over destiny, discipline over talent, growth over giftedness. I was not born with God-given talent that I haven't discovered yet, at least. I've barely been able to swim. I'm terrified of the water, something someone else can easily do with ease. You can't tell me how many tests I've failed in my life. I've never exactly been first in line when it came to being liked in school. I've never been able to pull off special tricks like others my age. I'm not the kid who can fold themselves into suitcases, having that kind of yoga mobility. I wasn't given intellect. I had to learn. We were all born three ways, dumb, naked, and speechless. We all work for what we have. Nothing worth having comes easy or without failure. Everything's skill and piece of knowledge is something we've all had to learn and pick up along the way. Sometimes we've had to unlearn information in our lives because not all information is facts, especially not facts for us. We live in a society where it's like nobody even knows the truth anymore. We lived in a heated social, political, and economic climate. We can't even draw the line between facts and information overload. We're constantly drawn away from the facts and convinced, we always pick a group to hate throughout history, an innocent group, and the ethnicities, the migrants, and the smaller groups. We have been convinced by the higher ups that these are the problems instead of looking at who's pulling the strings. We have more than enough in this world to support 8 billion people beautifully and sufficiently, but we have to create debts, war, and psyops to keep the people in check. They have tried to keep the stupid, ignorant, and focused on believing in each other, have problems, focused on hating each other instead of looking at that puppet master, just like we have people puppet master in our life all the time. And we have to learn to break free. I've always learned to question because the suspects will always point to the victims. The suspects will always fight to keep their bad deeds a secret, when it's rather strange that someone who claims their innocence would want to hide proof that makes them innocent. We've claimed to have shortages in the past when in reality the shortages are manufactured to keep the economy running and allowed to keep the suffering running. The reality is that we've let the power go to the greedy and power hungry, and they don't believe in sharing among the rest. We have to learn to develop our own backbones in this mean, nasty world and realize that, again, we were built for times like this. If not now, when you suggest, if not who else do you suggest takes a stand? We need the people to take a stand, like always. The good people sit on the sidelines and complain while the nasty people of this world continue to spend hatred and pull the puppet strings and psyops. Nothing good has ever been created by people who sit and complain. History may be written by the victors, but it was never written by people who sat and did nothing. Maybe we can rewrite history into what it really is. But many might not be ready for that, and many might not ever be. There will never be an ideal time to take a stand. But, there's always the right time to do the right thing, my friends. And anyways, you will all be excited about next week's special. I've been cooking up fresh ideas and new topics, my friends, and hopefully I don't fall ill or plans don't fall through, but I will be super, super excited to introduce an acquaintance and good old friend named Jesse, who directs shows at the Showtimers Community Theater, who has been looking forward since November to be on my show as a guest for an episode on the 27th. Be there on WRKE.org or on a TuneIn app or 100.3 LPFM for this upcoming episode at 8 a.m. on February 27th. Stay tuned and get excited. She is a friend of a friend, if you'd like to call it that. She is a friend of my best friend, Kevin Perry, who's been the bedrock of my, high school life and social life. And for a while, we have both always and will be a force to be reckoned with. We are those two friends who've gone days, months, or years without seeing one of each other, and it would be like we never separated. I went to one of Jessie's shows herself at Showtimers, and let me tell you, it was a packed house, and the performances are nothing but applause. I look forward to welcoming her during our next hour, my friends. And again, I highly ask you to suggest listeners to get in touch or to comment or suggest ideas through our email address, radio@roanoke.edu, or through our Facebook page. Again, reach me through Instagram and in Facebook as Anakin Heidrich, ANAKYN, HEIDRICH, ANAKYN, HEIDRICH, and through YouTube and Instagram as the coolest pet in town. Come see my videos on the coolest pet in town. You will not be disappointed, my friendos. And, I highly encourage you, like I said before, to share your stories on your social media pages. I really, really look forward to it. And, make sure you understand that your stories will be on the air and remain there when finished. You send me your story. You assume this risk. You can reach me by commenting to your stories on my posts online through the social media posts and profiles that I have mentioned several times this hour. They can also be you can also be co-hosts, but you'll talk to me, and I'll do everything I can to make that dream of yours become a reality. I guarantee your story will be told sooner or later. But, as always, thank you for sticking with me, and I'll see everyone later. Stay hungry, powerful, positive, negative when necessary, and proactive, my friends. Always, always, always question everything. You love music, and so do we. That's why at WRKE, we're all about introducing you to alternative choices the other stations won't or can't play. You're listening to WRKE 100.3 LPFM, Salem, streaming live online at WRKE.org. And on the TuneIn app, just search for WRKE. Thank you very much, my friends. This has been the Heidrich Motivational Hour, and I will see you next week. Goodbye, my friends. Stay strong.